Welcome to Inside the Castle, the podcast that goes behind castle doors to have real conversations with real people about solving the nation's toughest challenges. I'm one of your hosts for today, Lauren Lake.
And I'm Aaron Snyder. Today, the Chief of Engineers, General Spellmon, is joining us. General Spellmon, thanks for joining us here today.
Aaron, Lauren, I greatly appreciate the invitation to join you and to have the opportunity to talk to the team. So thanks for the invite.
So before we dive too deep into the Corps and, day-to-day life within the Corps, we wanted you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up.
Yeah, so I've been in the Army since I left high school. I've been in the Army 34 years. In fact, I just completed my 20th move with my wife, Cherise, from Fort Belvoir down to Fort McNair. So I grew up in a very small town in northwest New Jersey, town of Bloomingdale. When I was growing up, it had one stoplight. I think today it has two, maybe three. So very small. This is formerly used to be dairy farm country. So that's where I grew up. Great small town to grow up in, a very strong working class community. And so, I learned from my aunts, my uncles, my mom and dad, my brothers and sisters, my neighbor, just the value of hard work and perseverance. So, and as I said, I graduated from high school, went to United States Military Academy at West Point in 1982, graduated 4 years later with the great class of 1986, and I've been having my Army career ever since and have enjoyed every day of it.
Great. Thank you, sir. It's interesting. We've had some previous podcasts with our other leaders, and Mr. Lee particularly talked about coming from a small town as well. So it's just interesting to see the backgrounds of our leadership and how that's gotten you to where you are today. Wanted to talk about, this has been a challenging year. I don't think anybody can dispute that. We've particularly had challenges due to the civil unrest and the COVID-19 pandemic. What messages do you have for our staff as they continue to deal with the challenges of 2020?
Yeah, so you're right. It has clearly been a challenging year on multiple fronts. But like what I like to tell people, and I shared this with Secretary McCarthy when I was going through the nomination process, I think with these challenges the nation's been dealing with, we're not immune from them, but with those challenges come opportunities to get better. So, and I'm proud of our USACE team because I think we've been doing exactly that. And so when people think 2020, right away, challenges, we go right to COVID. But look at all that we've learned about ourselves in operating in this environment. We've learned to operate in a distributed manner, which we have not done before, and we're still within our headquarters at the district, the regional level, and certainly here in Washington, D.C., the work is it's still getting done. And I think with COVID, and I would say even with some of the civil unrest that we've seen across the country, that's been challenging, but there's been opportunities, right? I think we've gotten to know ourselves a little bit better. I know I've met more pets and more kids in this virtual environment, and the opportunity that we have taken on our listening sessions, right, on diversity, inclusion, and equity. I think we've gotten to know our workforce better. So I think it's just going to make us better. But I would say it's not just been COVID and some of the civil unrest. It's just we've had another record storm season right in the Gulf, particularly with the state of Louisiana. And if you're not aware, just the revolution, we've really had a revolution in some aspects of our disaster response. And what I'm speaking of is our Blue Roof program. We've made some fundamental changes with technology in the Blue Roof program that really paid dividends for us in the state of Louisiana. I mean, we hung 10,000 roofs in record time, and I'd be happy to talk more about that. And then I would just say, look, we're looking at a third year in a row of a record civil works appropriation with the 21 budget. And we've had to learn how to do business better, right? We've gone from what has typically been, and I'm talking all portfolios now, not just civil works, what we have typically been a $20 to $22 billion annual business for the Army and the work that we do, not just for the Army, but for the Air Force, the VA, the combatant commanders, certainly civil works. And last year we obligated $40 billion. So that's double, right? That's double the workload. And so the opportunity to do things different. I don't get more generals. I don't get any more district commanders. I don't get any more SCSs. I don't get any more Aaron Snyders, Lauren Likes, Angie. I don't get any more people to do. So we've got to learn to do things better and deliver on these massive programs. And that's the path we're on. And I'm very proud of the team because I think we're making great progress.
Yes, thank you, sir. And, you mentioned a lot of great things that have happened during this time, and we can definitely delve into those a little bit further, but I know one of the things that's really on the mind of our staff is, and you mentioned this, that we have been successful during this challenging time, particularly with virtual work and operating, as you mentioned, in this distributed environment. So I think our staff would really like to know, what does the future look like? What does our work look like in the future, our workplace? And, for instance, will the agency be open to more virtual positions? And if so, will we have the IT to support that?
Yeah. Hey, Lauren, we just started out on a new USACE campaign plan. We've dusted off. We've got a bit of a new framework and have outlined. This is actually objective number 17 that we've added right before the last executive governance meeting, and we're calling it Workplace of the Future. So I don't know the answer to your question, but we are putting together a panel, right, of folks from the headquarters, folks from regions, folks from districts, and all the way down to area and resident engineer office. So I want to have a team that's wide and deep to take a look at the questions that everyone is asking. What do we look like in the future? Do we need all this space in the GAO building on the 3rd and 6th floor? I think the answer is going to be no, given what we've learned so far. And what does a future regional command headquarters like, or a district? I don't know, but that's what I've asked this team to take a look at and come back to us with some recommendations. Hey, so I'll just share this with you. I have a meeting I do once a month. We call it with the Fab Five, right? So that's several of the senior executives here in headquarters, Office of Counsel, contracting, HR, IT. I've asked them, Mr. Cooper, for example, Mr. Cooper, given everything you've learned over the past 8 to 9 months in COVID, would you ever go back to the way we were doing business in February of this year? I mean, I'll be frank, I was a little bit skeptical of what we were going to be able to accomplish or not accomplish in this virtual environment. And as were others. I mean, Mr. Steffens, same. From resource management, Mr. Cooper, I've mentioned, certainly Karen Payne, I think we're all a little bit skeptical. When I ask all 5 of those senior leaders in the headquarters, would we ever go back? Unanimously, the answer was no. We've learned some things, how we can do business better, be just as efficient, but do it in a virtual manner, save cost. So we're going to go down this path, Lauren. I don't know where it's going to take us, but we are taking a hard look at it.
Thanks. I think I want to talk with you a little bit about our workforce. So you've touched on this already, and really how our budgets have been increasing. We've been getting record appropriations. We've been dealing with record storms, then dealing with the COVID emergencies. When we look at what we ask of our staff day in and day out, it seems like it's growing. Every year we're asking more of the staff, but like you said, we're not getting more people. So how do we intend to deliver the program of the future while taking care of our people and really not burning them out?
Yeah. So there's a number of ways we could go about that response, Aaron. I will just start with, I've been a fan of delegating authority, and we worked hard with Mr. Dalton and Mr. Lee over the past couple of years down in Civil Works to do that, and I want to broaden that effort to other corners of the enterprise. And look at where do decisions need to be made and where does work need to be done? Does everything need to come to headquarters for review and approval? So I think an example, and you're familiar with this already, 408 permissions, right? We had a process a little over 2 years ago where every 408 permission came up to headquarters for review. Look, we've got talented engineers in the field, and we stopped that behavior. We stopped that practice, and those decisions now are made at the district level. And now we're turning those permissions, that decision timeline, around in like half the time that it took us before. And so we've done a number of other delegations, and happy to talk about any of them. But I think where we can push down and not bring things to the Pentagon or not bring decisions to the 3rd floor of the GAO, where we have the means and the capabilities to make those decisions out in the field, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And being able to delegate those decisions down to the field and have those decisions at the lowest level is, I think, important, and it helps have the experts be the ones making those decisions. One thing we've heard about a lot is, the Corps can be a little bit bureaucratic. If you look in the media once in a while, it talks about the slowness of the agency. And some of that, I think, may come from our structure. And we were wondering if do you think we have the right mix of districts and divisions? And is your team, and in looking at Revolutionized Civil Works, is any consideration being given to consolidation of some of these districts that we have, or even consolidations of headquarters with the MSCs to make us a flatter organization to allow some of this decision-making to happen faster?
Yeah, Aaron, I have not made that part of the campaign plan. This is we call this the flags, the flags discussion. Do we want to look at taking down districts, or do we want to look at taking down regional headquarters? I'm not today. General Scott Spellmon is not open to that discussion, right? Because I think we need every senior leader that we have right now in the Corps to deliver on this massive. I mentioned $40 billion worth of investment last year. And, we have about $68 billion worth of work already on the books. I think we need every senior leader and the staffs that we have currently to deliver on that program and to provide the proper oversight for it. So I haven't entertained the flag argument as I refer to it. Our districts can expand and contract depending on the workload, and we fully expect them to do that as they work through their workload and workforce assessments in the out years. But again, I'm not repeating myself here. I'm not ready to take on the argument that we may need less senior executives or less general officers or less colonels providing oversight for these programs out in the field. If that answers your question.
Yeah, most certainly. Thank you.
And so you talked about, delivering our mission and how important it is that we have everybody on board to do that, including our leadership. And so talking about our staff, they look to our leaders, and it really is important that our leadership is inspiring. What should our leaders be doing to inspire staff, and how should we inspire the next generation?
Yeah, I think inspiration comes with, maybe I'm a bit old school here, but what inspires me is the challenge. Right, and we certainly have. Last year we had $40 billion worth of challenges, and we have more on the way. So that I think we have the challenge in front of us, in the trust that the Congress and the nation has given us with the tremendous workload that we have in front of us. I think it all starts. A big part of this is also a positive command climate, and if you haven't heard, that's like number one on my command philosophy. I think we have got to do everything we can, not just here in the headquarters, but also out in our 9 regional commands and our 44 districts. We've got to do everything we can to, one, have a positive command climate, and then you've got to work hard every day to maintain it. And I think we saw today, if you're not aware, the Army released its findings of what had occurred down at Fort Hood, Texas, and you can see some pretty harmful effects when you start to lose a positive command climate. So I think that's always got to be job one for us as commanders and leaders at every level is working on that. And then the other thing I like to tell folks, I don't think as a senior leader we can ever say thank you enough to our workforce. And it doesn't cost us anything. It only takes a little bit of time. But you just think about the last time, maybe your supervisor or the director of civil works or the DCG for civil and emergency operations said thank you to the team, and maybe slapped a coin on one of our employees. I have a program. I'm using helmet stickers, which in some corners are a bit more popular than coins, that we put on our hard hats when I'm visiting folks out in the field, and just taking the opportunity to say thank you to people for the long hours and the hard work that they're putting in. I think that goes a long way as well. I've made people my number one priority, just like the Army has, and want to get after a number of people initiatives. And as long as I'm in this position as the 55th Chief of Engineers.
Yes, thank you, sir. And I personally think that those thank yous do go a long way, for sure, in building that positive command climate. And, part of that positive command climate is also building trusting teams. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about trust and accountability. What are your recommendations on ways to make trust and accountability more of a priority in culture within the organization to help you build that positive command climate?
Yeah. Hey, Lauren, so you're familiar, and I think most of our listeners will be familiar with the work that we've done with delegations. So when you delegate authority, right, down to a region or down to a district, we're saying, look, I trust you. I trust you to do the right thing. If you need help, come up on the net, but I'm trusting you to make these decisions on behalf of the agency. moving forward. And some of our listeners have heard this vignette before, but just it bears repeating. So just bear with me for a moment. We fell into this process over time, and I'm going back a number of years. In some cases, I'm going back decades, where we have a project out in the field that a district commander or a DPM makes a decision, and the project goes sideways. We bust schedule or we break budget. The Corps of Engineers, we're a proud institution. We've been around for 245 years. We say to ourselves, well, we're never going to let that happen again. So not only are we going to take that decision away from district number 20, in the future, we're going to take that decision away from all 44 districts, because we're never going to let that happen again. And we're going to elevate the decision to the region, or we're going to elevate it to the headquarters, or the assistant secretary is going to elevate it to his or her level. And then that happens, and this is true, that happens over and over a period of time. And then you wake up one morning and you realize that you have centralized so much decision-making in Washington, D.C., that you have really hampered the efforts of the folks out in the field. And so that's one of the things I want to reverse. So, look, it's construction. Things at times are going to go sideways. We fight weather. We fight COVID. We fight labor. We fight materials. Things are going to go sideways. If we make a mistake, look, let's just own it, right? Let's hold people accountable where it happened, right? Let's learn from it. Let's make sure everyone learns from it. And share best practices and lessons learned, but let's not centralize and over-centralize like we've done in the past. Let's keep moving forward after we have an opportunity to learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, that's really exciting to hear you talk about that and say that, we're not going to have that knee-jerk reaction, and, we're not going to hear that this will never happen again. It's more about learning from it and realizing what happened in that circumstance and then adjusting, but not taking the authority away from everybody because of one bad situation. So I think that's really exciting. And, maybe I want to talk a little bit about the campaign plan. And you mentioned, you're leading with a new framework. You talked about people being number one, and I know your other priorities are readiness, partnership, and revolutionize. I want to be honest, this campaign plans haven't been the most exciting for me in the past, and I know when I was in the district, the only reason I cared about a campaign plan was just so I could prep for an interview. I want to know, what is different about your vision for the campaign plan, and what are you going to do differently to really allow districts and staff at all levels to work together to achieve this vision that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. So, Aaron, as I was going through the interview process for this job, one of the questions I had, if you were to be nominated and confirmed, we'd like you to come back and outline for us what do you think the next campaign plan looks like for the Army Corps of Engineers, and what will be your priorities after you have a chance to do your assessment. Well, I'm not a stranger. I'm not coming in from the outside. I've been with the Corps for the past 5 years, and so much of what I wanted to get started with on the next version of the USACE campaign plan was really unfinished business from what I took with me from the other end of the hallway, which were really some things that I thought were, you mentioned WIFIA. I'm thinking of things like continuing contract authority and multi-year capital investment strategy. Just did not get there far down the line as I wanted to when I was the Deputy Commanding General. So I brought those forward with me down this end of the hall because I think I can help drive those. And then I wanted to expand this effort because I really do believe the Civil Works has been on the leading edge of this revolutionized effort for us and has made some really positive and superb gains. But I wanted to expand and deepen and accelerate that effort to other corners of the enterprise, to our military program, to our R&D program, which I'm really excited about. I've got to get some funding for. To me, these initial 16, 17 areas, Aaron and Lauren, these were just a starting point for me, a starting point of discussion. But 4 years is not a lot of time for a chief to get some things done. So I didn't want to spend 2 or 3 cycles of executive governance meetings debating the framework for the next USACE campaign plan. We've done that in the past. I'm less fussed about the framework. I want the Army leadership to see that we're nested with them and they're comfortable with the framework we've chosen. It's more me about the actionable objectives that we're going to pursue and hold ourselves accountable to milestones and deliverables to make us better and faster at finishing quality projects on time and within budget. That's what it's all about for me.
Thanks. And I've heard you talk in the past about, empowering the district commanders and empowering staff. And it seems to me like the campaign plan that you've structured here is really more intended to kind of give the staff something to shoot for, but now you know what to work within. So it's not necessarily going to be specific, hey, knock down this exact target. It's going to say we want to work within these broad areas to make the organization better, and you're free to operate within these bounds. Is that a correct way to summarize the campaign plan and why it should be important to people of the district?
Yeah, Aaron, that's it. I think we have, and we'll work harder to communicate this, but to me it is a descriptive framework. So the USACE campaign plan, you saw the 4 lines of effort and the initial objective areas that we're pursuing. That's what we can do at our level to better enable regions and districts to finish quality projects on time within budget, right? Those are things that we need to do here in Washington, D.C. with Congress, with the Secretary, with OMB, our partners at this level. When it goes down to a region, when it goes down to a district, I expect them, if they have a different framework, that's fine. But as long as they're pursuing the meaningful objectives, they're going to get after that end state, right, finishing. I'll leave it up to them to pick the right tasks and objectives. But, I mean, I want to know what they are, and I certainly want to help where I can, but I want them doing everything at their level within the district headquarters, within the regional level, to enable those PDTs to get after delivery.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think enabling the PDTs is the key there. And you know, and that really leads to innovation and, you know, what you talked about earlier with, you know, with the multi-year investment strategy, you know, those are innovative ideas. And it seems like those have to get generated somewhere. And a lot of times we have a lot of ideas at the district level and staff has ideas, but they might not necessarily have the resources to pursue those. And I know an example, you know, within districts is that you have a good idea, but unless you have a direct charge code to be able to spend the time on to develop that idea and implement it, you really don't have those opportunities. And I know that there's a lot of companies out there that dedicate time to staff where they can sit and be innovative and creative. And it doesn't seem like we have that flexibility in the Corps when we have some of these metrics that we're chasing. I want to know, you know, what can be done to free up some time for innovation at the districts and across the organization where we can take these great ideas and let them grow. Is there something that we should be doing and that those local commanders should be doing to facilitate that?
Yeah, I don't know that, you know, innovation seems to come out of necessity. So I'll just give you an example, and I'll bring it back to the Corps in a moment. But in a previous assignment, before I came to the Corps 5 years ago, I was the commander of an organization called Operational Test Command. So this is an organization that is the final gateway before the Army is going to purchase or send back into development its new systems. So we tested everything from new parachutes to new cannons to new rifles to new intel systems. And we would take systems that had passed laboratory testing, meaning they were safe, they were functional, and then we would put them out in the field with a company, a battalion, or a brigade of soldiers, and we would turn them loose. Hey, tell us, I mean, you know, soldiers will find great ways to break things that, you know, a lab technician never will. And so the systems just got better. And they would say, hey, General, if this system had this functionality, or if we added this to the rifle, or if we added this to the cannon, it would be so much better. So innovation was born out of necessity because these were the people that were going to have to actually employ these systems in training and in combat. So I think there's a great analogy here in the Corps. So I mentioned our workload's double at the moment what it's been historically. Now is the time to innovate, and it has to come out of necessity. So I mentioned the Blue Roof program earlier. Let me give an example. We didn't give the Blue Roof guys and gals any more time. Hey, go off for, in between storm seasons here. I'm going to give you some money. I just want you to think how we can do Blue Roofs better. No, it was out of necessity. So they enabled some technology that was out there. Typically, if you're not familiar with storm response, what we had done in the past, when an individual loses his or her roof in a storm, we would go there with an assessment team. The assessment team pulls out a ladder. It goes up on the roof after it gets a right of entry, and it will take some measurements, and it will go back with a paper copy to the field headquarters, and they'll design that roof, determine if it qualifies, and then they'll put it in the queue, and then maybe a few days later we'll go back and hang that roof. That is very time-consuming and labor-intensive. So what did we do this year in the state of Louisiana? Well, we used some imagery technology, right? So we know when the storm's coming. We have a pretty good idea from forecasting where it's going to impact and what neighborhood's going to impact. contracted with the imagery service to fly those neighborhoods pre-storm. When the storm passes, we use the same imagery service and we fly those neighborhoods again, and we get a picture of what those neighborhoods look like after the storm has passed. We take that information, Aaron, and we use imagery now to do all of the measuring and assessments where we used to send people out in the neighborhoods with ladders and tape measures. And then we're deploying less people because it's people in Omaha district that are actually getting this work, doing the assessments, writing the performance workstation several states away, and then sending it to our subcontractors out in the field. That was fundamentally different and a revolutionary change in how we went about that. And as I mentioned, the team placed over 10,000 blue roofs in a record amount of time in the state of Louisiana following Hurricane Laura and the subsequent storms that followed. But again, it wasn't because we gave them time or gave them any more resources to get after it. It was folks that were in the need that made that happen. And that's just one of a number of examples I would mention.
Great, sir. Yeah, I mean, as somebody who's dealt with hurricanes before, that the timely response of our staff getting out there or getting those roofs on for folks in need is amazing, and it's great to see that we've implemented those innovations going forward. I know that folks will be very appreciative and look forward to more of these opportunities to innovate as we move forward. Thinking about our partners going forward, you gave an example of the folks that we're helping out there on the field, but we also work with a lot of partners throughout our projects and our organization to both implement projects and achieve success through other efforts. And so wanted to talk about particularly our external partners and ask you, what do you expect of leaders at all levels regarding partnering, particularly with a focus on those external partners?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say, Lauren, is don't overthink this, commanders. I want you to be good partners. I just want you to be a good partner. And at all levels, at the headquarters, at the region, down at the district, and with the PDTs. So an example I'll use, I had a meeting today. It's the third annual meeting that the Chief of Engineers has hosted with the 6 CEOs and presidents of the hopper dredge industry. And we've had some challenges in the past with dredging down at the tactical level. We're having some cost estimating issues. We've had some scheduling issues. We've had some coordination issues. And so General Semonite, for the right reason, said, you know what, why don't we elevate some of this, and I will host this meeting. And so I had the opportunity to host it today, and we have come so far in a positive direction, not only in our relationships, but in some of the hard issues that we're wrestling with out in the field. And it has made a fundamental positive difference in our program, which is growing. The dredge program, if you're not aware, is growing exponentially, and we have to maintain this level of partnership at all levels. And it can't just be, the Chief of Engineers or the DCG for Civil and Emergency Operations or the Director of Military Programs. We've got to drive this down to the lowest levels of our organization. I say it this way. I don't think we have a partnering issue. I think we have a consistency issue. And what I mean by that is I've seen districts that do this extremely well, and PDTs that do this extremely well, and there are countless examples out there. And then we have other districts and other PDTs, frankly, that don't do it very well at all. And I want to level the bubble on this and improve our consistency in this department. So I think there's an education component to this that I want to bring into our onboarding processes, into our pre-command courses, and certainly into our command strategic reviews, which we just started up again this week with our first one in the past 42 months. We just wrapped up a command strategic review out at Transatlantic Division. So I think there's an education component to it. I think there's a lessons learned component to it that I would like to bring into our executive governance meeting. In fact, we just did that this past month on some partnering challenges that New Orleans District and Kansas City District face. And so some great sharing of lessons learned there. And I just want to raise visibility on this across the board on some of the challenges that we're having and what some successful commanders and DPMs are doing to get after these challenges and inconsistencies.
Yeah, I think that's good. And one thing that seems to be a strong suit that you had, I've seen you speak a number of times, and how you communicate with folks. It seems like you're very open and transparent in your communications, and sometimes within the Corps of Engineers, I think maybe we communicate a little too technical or a little too bureaucratic. it seems like communications have been really important. And I think in particular, you were talking to groups about water supply and some of the challenges there, but you were very open and transparent. Do you want to just talk a little bit about communications and the importance to partnering and how that can bring people to the table?
I think the water supply is a great example, Aaron. You know, this topic, we had Army senior leaders being held up in the confirmation process over the topic of water supply. I learned that after several of these, to include the Chief of Staff in the Army, the Undersecretary of the Army, that, wow, what's going on here? There's a problem. And if you're not familiar, water supply gets technical very, very quickly. With Mr. Dalton's help, we dove into the pool, so to speak, on this one to get what are the specific issues that are out there. And when we got into the pool and started to wrestle with some of these issues, we necessarily didn't like the position that we had found ourselves in. I had spoken with a number of state attorney generals, a number of governors, a number of elected leaders, particularly from Western states, but not solely Western states, that said to me things like, I'm going back now to the former water supply rule. Hey, Spellmon, you know, we have been asked to consult with the Corps headquarters on this, and we were told by senior leaders within the Corps that we'll talk to you after the water supply rule is passed. I didn't believe that. I did not believe that statement until I went and found those senior leaders who were mentioned that made those comments. And guess what? What the stakeholders were telling, our partners were telling us, were right. We did say those type of things. And that's just not who we are as an agency, right? And so on things like this, what I've learned is we've got to do our best to take the complicated and put it in our best plain English for the American public and their elected leaders and others to understand. And I think we've done that on water supply, but there are many, many other opportunities out there where we've got to bring that focus to it, and better serve and better communicate to the American people, because it benefits everyone.
Yeah, and communications is a key part of the Revolutionized Civil Works effort. And you talked earlier about, you know, coming from the other end of the building and, you know, being part of the Revolutionized efforts. I want to talk a little bit about Revolutionized Civil Works and where do you see that initiative going, and really what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so others have heard me say this before, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about it. To me, Revolutionize, it's a mindset. And the mindset that everything ought to be on the table when we're trying to get better at finishing quality projects on time within budget. So if it's a policy change here in the headquarters or maybe in the Secretary's office or Department of the Army, if it's going to allow us to do something faster at lower cost and get it done with better quality, why not go and ask for that policy change? Or maybe it's legislation. Why can't we go back to the Hill and explain to our elected leaders, wow, you know, if we could get an amendment to this law or a change in this law, this is the positive impact that it would have. And I mean, you all know this. There are just countless examples in the last several quarters where Congress is helping us get better. I could give several examples of where the Pentagon and the Assistant Secretary's office has also recognized the need for changing in some policies. And we've gotten that. I just want district commanders and I want DPMs to be thinking, don't handcuff yourself, don't suffer in silence. If there's something out there that we need to change, let's go and ask for it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I think that's a great comment there, and I hope that others take that to heart too as we move forward. You know, I appreciate your comments today, particularly challenging our staff and challenging our leaders to, you know, really move forward with partnering and to take the challenges that that 2020 has given us and really use those to make ourselves better. And good to hear that you've really seen that we've used these opportunities to really improve the agency overall, and hopefully we continue to do that going forward. You know, we're about at the end of our time today, and so I wanted to ask you, sir, if you have any final thoughts for us or things we didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about today.
I just, Lauren and Aaron, thanks again for this opportunity. I just want our leaders, our engineers, all of our teammates here in the Corps just to keep pushing the envelope. And I use the term, hey, don't suffer in silence. If you're wrestling with an issue down in District Number 20, look, I want you to work hard on it, and I want you to come up on the net when you need help. Tell us what the issue is. Tell us what you've done about it, and then let us know how we can help, because I think that's only going to make us a better organization. And don't hold on to things for so long, because we have a tendency as engineers, as scientists, that hey, look, we don't want to raise issues to our boss. My boss is busy. I'm going to work as hard as I can to solve this at my level. And if we're not careful, and weeks can go by or months can go by before we ask for help. So I just challenge everyone to take that into consideration. And also, I'll just end where I started. We've got a lot of challenges out there, certainly with the pandemic, challenges with this workload that we're under. Look at these challenges as opportunities to fundamentally change the way we go about doing business, and how can we do it better by putting everything on the table. And where we need help in policy or law, we ought to be able to ask for that. The last thing I would say is, look, the holidays are coming up, and it has been a hard year for everyone. And I just want people to, you've got to take leave. You have got to take leave to decompress and spend time with your family. I want everyone to do that and enjoy this holiday season as best you can in the current environment. See as much as your family that you can possibly see in a safe manner, because we all need you back safe and healthy following the new year, because it's going to bring new challenges to all of us.
General Spellmon, I'd love to have you back on the show again. So hopefully maybe we can schedule that and get some more questions from our audience. But thank you for joining us today for this edition of Inside the Castle. We appreciate you and your willingness to be open with us and to share your insights. To our listeners, we want to hear from you, what topics are important to you, and people you're interested in hearing from. Until next time, be safe, be innovative, and be revolutionary. To provide your feedback, email us at cw.infrastructure.team@usace.army.mil. Stay tuned for additional Inside the Castle podcasts as we explore life inside the Corps and revolutionize civil works together.